And
there we go.
Here at South by Southwest in the hangout.
Yeah.
At the Google Developer House.
At the Google Developer House, where all the excitement is happening. There are Lego building contests, and we're giving away Android tablets.
And really cool tablets.
Real cool tablets. So I'm here with Pete.
I'm Pete Hollenhorst. I work as a national product trainer for LG.
And I'm Alan Queen. I'm the CTO of MOVL from Atlanta.
And I'm Harper Lieblich. I'm the user experience designer for iHeartRadio.
Cool. So the questions I was asked to ask till we get some folks popping in is why? Well, we know why you've chosen to develop, but so why did you choose to develop for Google TV?
Well, I mean, the main reason is that we're able to use everything we already use every day as far as the technologies go, right? So, you know, if you're an Android developer, you know, it's all about being able to take your existing work and put it on the TV experience, right? So not only that, but as far as HTML5 and web development comes right across with a full Chrome browser. So, you know, it's really easy to get your ideas up and running on Google TV because it's things you use every day.
Okay, cool.
iHeartRadio is a radio app, so you know it's all about music. It's all about being able to listen to your favorite radio station. And for most people, the best speakers in their house are connected to their television. So it was a real great opportunity for us to get our app on people's televisions and connected to those nice big speakers that they've got them plugged into. And then we can also create a neat living room experience for people while they're listening to their favorite radio station, which is cool.
Cool. Let's see. I'm just going to.
You know, we've traditionally supported smart TV for the last 3 years, but one of the big things that our customers came back, or just the general consumer came back and asked for, was something that was faster. They wanted something that provided aggregate data as opposed to just randomly searching across, and Google has been that partner for us. It's really the fastest way to go out and search for data and take advantage of the current content that you have, not add to that additional content. So from a hardware perspective, Google's at that natural partnership, one of the strongest platforms that's out there.
And the LG TV is really, really fast.
Yeah,
and Google TV.
We had talked about that. So, you know, when we looked and did our consumer test focus groups across the board looking at coming in on this platform, one of the biggest things that came across was, you know, the usability, but more importantly, the performance capability. So when we selected a chipset, we built our own chipset from the ground up. It's an LG Initech L9 chipset, and really what that does is instead of just adding speed, it complements exactly where Google's heading, and that's an app performance. You know, when we think TV, we're thinking video-based performance. We're thinking graphic-based performance that's out there. So, you know, where it complements, I think, is on that L9 chipset. You know, when I look at things like MOVL is developing, or even iHeartRadio, just the transition between screens, hardware performance is very important just for those fast transitions or for faster applications across the board. You know, so we're looking forward to opening up the capabilities of what the software side can do. With an accelerated speed, you're not only getting faster search speeds, but you're also getting better app development that's supported.
And you're seeing that in standard Google TV apps that they just run, you download from Google Play,
yes,
and it just works.
That's, you know, that's ultimately, I mean, we can talk, you know, we're going to talk for a while, you know, here at the Hangout, but, you know, at the end of the day, that's what the average consumer's looking for. They want something that, I think you guys would agree, they just want something that works.
Very cool. Let's see, why don't I ask you, so when MOVL, you've got a lot of apps that run on Google TV.
Sure.
Did you run into any problems developing, and how did you overcome them?
Well, you know, when we first started developing for Google TV, it was last year. It was when before we were able to create, you know, native Android apps, and so we primarily focused on developing for Google Chrome, right?
Yeah.
And so we have full screen apps, you know, running right in the browser. And honestly, with that capabilities, for us to be able to develop locally on our computers and have it run almost identically on the TV was just great for us. So there wasn't a whole lot of issues there, right? I mean, obviously we've gone through a couple of iterations of speed and things like that, and just working out some of the kinks internally. But for us, it really hasn't been a problem at all. Now, when we go to native applications, one of the takes that we're doing is still trying to use HTML5, but inside of Android applications, web views and things like that, to take advantage of what we're already doing. And so there's a couple issues there that we've had, related to making sure that the D-pad still works in a normal environment, getting into things like that. But we've been able to work all that out. So I mean, we're able to add just a little bit of native Android code to make our existing web apps work inside of a native app.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And iHeartRadio is also a web app that's coming out.
Yeah, we developed the whole thing in HTML5, and we've made a lot of use of transitions and animations, and I think this platform, especially when people sit down on their mobile phone or wherever else they use a computer, it's not always for fun, but when you sit down in front of your television, it's almost always because you're looking to have some fun, you're looking for entertainment.
Yeah.
So we wanted to complement that with some really neat, give it that whoosh, give it that sort of pizzazz, and make it really feel exciting to use the app. And so that's also been a challenge to really, make sure that feeling comes across on these televisions with regards to some of the chips, the chipsets. So it's also really neat to see this running on the faster televisions, because we can really crank up that sort of sexiness of the app.
Yeah.
Which has been a lot of fun.
And iHeartRadio has got all kinds of cool transitions, and it's really good. Okay. I'm sort of hoping to get a few folks to asking questions. Yeah, that's one of the ones we get a lot. That has the one question I have that's been posted to the stream is, when does Hulu Plus show up? And that has nothing to do with us, unfortunately. I wish I could answer that. It doesn't. Any of you have questions? We're doing a live hangout here at South by Southwest. Yeah.
Hello. Can everyone hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, guys. I'm really happy to be here. I'm a big fan of Google TV and especially what you guys are doing, so thank you. I was wondering, when you leverage using television as sort of that larger medium as a screen as far as resolution, what are some of the benefits that most consumers you think can really get or extract value from by having a much larger screen than a computer screen as in the past?
Well, I'll start, but one of the things that you think about for a television is it's actually not larger. For the 10-foot experience, if you hold a tablet up close and then look up at your TV, the TV actually looks smaller. And so the information density is not as great. So you need to think about TVs differently than you do a computer or a tablet, and not put as much information, put bigger things up there, make it more fun but more focused in a sense. And
I think the biggest advantage of this form factor is it's a social screen. It's not a bunch of people crowding around a computer. It's not even a cell phone, which is very personal. This is about a bunch of people sitting down and watching something or using something. So the apps that really take advantage of that, and you can speak to this, are the ones that are really going to take advantage of that social experience.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that when we use our mobile devices, that's a very, like you said, it's a personal experience. It's my little view into the world. But the TV is something that's common to everyone in the house most of the time. When you have it above your fireplace or things like that. So it's a very social experience where everyone's in the living room watching it. So being able to take advantage of not just the larger screen, but that social nature is what we're all about. Creating multi-screen applications for multiple people to use at the same time, all controlled from their mobile devices. So we really think that's a very exciting opportunity for smart TV apps. Is getting everyone's already in their living room using these devices while they watch TV, right? So we're trying to take advantage of that and let people actually be social around the TV, rather than just looking like at their phone while they're watching TV and ignoring each other. So anyway, that's just another aspect that we think is really great about bringing applications to the TV. Of course, it's obviously TV is a lean back, veg out experience traditionally, but there's a lot of interesting things you can do once you get some interactivity going with all the people in the house all gathered around the TV.
I'm actually going to take a different take on it. I think that by going to a TV aspect, you open the demographic up. If you watch who's interacting, not just at South by Southwest, but just in the general public, it's a very dedicated sect of people. I mean, it's a wider variation, but going to a TV platform opens that up to people that traditionally wouldn't get involved in this content area. I've got a 90-year-old grandfather that probably wouldn't have and isn't. He's got an iPhone and he thinks it's cool because he can FaceTime, but that's about it. I mean, that's for him. That's all that experience is. When I showed him the capabilities of Thews, or when I show him the capabilities of iHeartRadio, it personalizes that experience. But he never would have gotten that through any smartphone or tablet application if it hadn't been on a TV. There's something intrinsically about TV that makes it familiar to everybody. From a very early age, we were taught that it's okay to be in that TV experience and to promote that social capability. So it's just, it's that spoonful of sugar, if you will, that's helping the medicine go down.
Yeah, TV is a very relaxing, fun, social experience. And so you're thinking about everything differently.
Okay. It's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
It's a really good question. I'm sure there's something else, though, that somebody else has got.
Anyone have any other questions? Okay.
Very, very.
The developers talk about their favorite part of their own app, or what they think highlights the best feature set.
Cool.
Sure.
We were asked for what is the most, for each developer to talk about what part of their apps highlights the Google TV experience and what is really exciting about their apps.
Yeah. I think, like Les said earlier, because you can only fit so much information on the screen at a time, you have to really think clearly about what it is that's the core of your app and why people want to use it, and remove all of the extra bells and whistles so that you really got a clean, easy to use experience. And it's that focus that for us was sort of refreshing, and it allowed us to strip away all of the extraneous things that we've got going on our other platforms and just focus on that core radio listening experience. So that's one of my favorite things about it. And then the other was the freedom to really play with the visual style and to make it feel open and inviting, because it's in somebody's living room. We want to make sure that they feel comfortable as soon as they go into that app. And I love that I feel like we've been able to make something that feels, it sort of draws you in as opposed to instead of making you feel sort of overwhelmed by information on your screen. So.
Yeah, I don't want to turn this into a UX discussion, but it brought up an interesting thing that I always like when people say, an app is not done until you can't take anything else away, right? So that's like very important for TV. Strip out everything. It's not done when you can't add anything else to it, right? But from what mobile does is really take advantage of the TV and the second screen experience. So we're all about, everybody around the living room using their mobile devices, their tablets to interact together and in a social experience where the TV is sort of the anchor point. whether that's in a living room at home or might be in a bar in a restaurant, that people can actually use this TV and the mobile devices in a really social way to have a lot of fun, entertainment-based applications. So, for us, that's what's the best thing about developing for TV is being able to, use this thing to actually do all of your text input, your searching, your finding all your content, and using the TV to really act as the anchor point in the kind of display area for the device. And obviously for Google TV, we're able to do that very easily. So we've been really happy with the experience.
Oh, cool. So Cliff writes in, asks about two things about the LG. One is, do you support the NTFS file system?
Yeah.
And then the second one is, do you have any good video chat apps being planned and supporting a camera for this? I don't know you've announced anything,
No,
but
so there's on NTFS, not at this point that we're going to discuss. I can tease the video aspects. If you've taken a look at some of the specs that have gotten leaked or talked about from CES or even here at South by Southwest, we've talked about the USB inputs, and we've always natively supported cameras with that. So there is a lot that's being planned, nothing that we're announcing here at South by Southwest. What I was going to say is just my favorite part of where that goes into is we're coming into this platform, we try to attack it from 3 dedicated points in terms of usability, and just, that's where that magic motion came into play with a very easy to use remote control, coming in and talking about just the overall performance, and not only a good chipset but a native UI that worked well, and then in terms of content. But all 3 of those feed back into what is that total user experience for it. So tying in our 3D, tying in Google TV, tying in all of that, we want to make sure that people are able to interact. So we're not announcing anything, but I will point out again that we've got 2 USBs. Most of the time you only need 1, and we do have a USB camera that's available, so you can draw your own conclusions.
Okay. And then there's another question from Russia, from Alexander.
Hello, Alexander.
And he asks, what media formats and containers will LG TV support? Will MPEG-2 be supported, and will DTS be supported?
So yeah, we're actually that format king across the board. In fact, there's very few formats that we don't play nice with, but for Alexander that's out there, MPEG-2 is definitely something we're going to support. Plex is a great way to bring that back in. Any of your native content, if Plex supports it, we're going to be able to play that back on our TVs across. I'm sure there's some great questions, though, coming through across. Actually, I was going to ask about iHeartRadio. I mean, where's the evolution then coming from a radio standpoint on TV? Where's the user impact? Why would I first be interested? And I guess what's the nice to know, not the need to know, but what's the nice to know feature about iHeartRadio that you're anticipating?
In terms of what's coming up or what's on there right now? Well, one of the things that we're trying to do is obviously we interview lots of artists and bands and musicians. We've got great photos and videos and articles about them. So that's one thing that we're talking about bringing into the experience across all of our different platforms. But I think especially the video aspect of that works great on the television. And then the other is just enhancing that social experience so that people feel like they're sharing with each other, because radio is such a social medium. There's always people calling in. There's always people, talking to each other, whether it's DJs and hosts. And so we want to really try to tie that in and make it feel even more social when it's in people's living rooms.
One thing I didn't find out when I first saw iHeartRadio a couple weeks ago was, is it just clear channel radio stations, or is it a broad selection? Or
it's not. Up until recently was just clear channel radio stations, and that's 800 radio stations across the country. But we're now starting to bring in other stations and that's including Univision. We've got a couple of public stations, public radio stations coming in, including WNYC in New York. And we're now, for the first time, starting to talk about bringing in college radio stations.
Oh,
so
very
you'll
cool.
be able to listen to a whole different gamut of different terrestrial live radio stations.
So it's a good eclectic set. And
Yeah, I think there's something in there for everybody.
Okay.
So.
Let's see. Anyone else in the room have another question? Yeah.
Vogel, you kind of talk about building for the living room, and then also just the way you change the way you're thinking about Google TV and bringing it to like a bar or kind of more of a bigger.
Sure. So the question is about how mobile is transforming our living room games into more public space applications for bars and restaurants and other things. So, we actually, when we started all this, we always thought that it would be great to take that multi-screen experience from the living room to bars and restaurants, right? You go any bar you go to. I mean, if you guys are going up and down 6th Street, right? I mean, just count the number of TVs that are in all those bars, right? So we just think we see those there, and how many people see those every single day and every single night? And then imagine if all of those had Google TV on it, what would you do with it, right? So the way we approach it is we want to have apps running on the TV, but then have everyone else pull out their mobile device and be able to play along. So it's just as easy as downloading an app, and you might be in a bar, you might play trivia, you might play poker. So that's what we're doing. We're actually have a new product coming out called The Neighborhood, which is going to be launching in several bars and restaurants in the Chicago area in a couple of weeks, and we're hoping to launch that in many more across the country over this year. But it will allow you to do just that. So you'll be able to walk into the bar and actually, compete with other people, and it's a really social experience because the TV on the wall functions as the, where everyone kind of discovers it and plays along, but they're also connected to each other. So private messaging, chatting, you can imagine all the different things are going to happen in a bar setting or a cafe setting. It's not just for bars. It's actually for, retail, bars, cafes, coffee shops, that kind of a thing.
And that can work with anyone's mobile phone. Do they download your app or just go to the website?
So we actually have, we're going to be doing both versions. So you can actually just go to a URL on your phone and you'll be able to play along. And so all the connection stuff happens via HTML5, WebSockets, that kind of a thing. So any HTML5 enabled browser for mobile phones will work just fine. And then we'll also have a downloadable version so you can kind of get to it a little faster as well.
And Summer asks, how are mobile devices able to interact with the Google TV? I'm assuming she's asking about the SDK.
Yeah, so we actually have a platform and an SDK, a set of APIs that anyone can use to create multi-screen applications for smart TVs. I know that's a mouthful, but if you go to connect.mobile.com, all you have to do is sign up, and you can download APIs for iOS, Android, JavaScript, and even Flash. And everything is designed from the ground up around the smart TV experience. So you create an app on the TV, you call that the host application, and then you create an app for your mobile device that acts as the companion application. We call that the controller application. So once all the devices are connected, you can route messages between them, and it doesn't have to be over the same local Wi-Fi network. It actually works to the cloud as well. So you can have TV to TV play. So social in the living room and social across the net, multi-user gaming, things like that. Oh, thank you so much. We got a fan.
Yeah. And so the camera's not on it, but your app over there has a code. They just enter that code, and they're immediately synced. Yeah,
it's really simple. So, on the TV, every TV has a special pairing code to it, and you just enter it one time, enter the code once. It's a 5-digit code, and then you're connected to that television.
Okay.
And then that television is also connected to other televisions, and all goes down the line. And then whatever activity is happening on that TV at that moment, you also see the companion interface show up on your mobile device at the same time.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then we're going to extend that too, so that if you walk into a bar, it'll be location aware, right? So we'll be able to connect you even easier than entering a code.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. Nothing like getting a live phone call. Get them air.
Yeah, I'm that guy.
Okay.
I'm sure it's somebody calling in with a question.
Yes,
It's not a
exactly.
call-in show.
Okay, so do we have other questions in the room?
Before you wrap up, so each one of you give a one-sentence tip that has to be different from each one of you. Each one of you has to give a different tip for making a great app for a TV experience.
Okay.
That's with you, Leslie.
I know. Start that way.
All four. You need 4 good tips.
I would say it's really important to make sure that the user always knows where their focus is. This is a different, yeah.
From a developer point of view, I would say get a TV and test on your TV. Don't rely on anything else. Yes, you can do the custom builds for the Linux boxes for Google TV, but get a TV and get people using it. Obviously, that goes with any application, but it's definitely for TV.
Mine is just if we're developing key structure, just what may be intuitive for you or what you think works well for you, please test it amongst as many people as you can find. In fact, approach random strangers. I've seen a ton of different apps where it's not intuitive, and if it's not intuitive, it's an app that doesn't get used. That's my biggest request if you're watching right now.
And the number one feature that we test for that prevents apps from getting featured that play audio is respecting and requesting audio focus. We reject apps because of that. When you're in the living room, play well with others. And that's a real key thing. And you don't just Google Android audio focus. It's usually a line before you start playing, a line after, and about 4 or 5 lines of code, writing 1 minute for recognizing. Oh, and now we're getting an incoming broadcast, maybe. Okay, it's not happening. All right, thank you very much for coming. We're live from South by Southwest. All right, in Austin. Aloha.